Monkey business. Oop, oop. Ack, ack. Ooh, 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 ooh. Hey, that's the name of the essay. This is our first full sample student essay for the Comp 2 class. This is Monkey Business. This is written for the same assignment that you should be working on right now. As always, when we do these things, we're going to read it as a stupidly literal, stupidly critical reader. That's the way we're going to get the most value out of these things, is by seeing what kind of errors and issues pop up in this author's writing, because it's going to be a lot easier once we get used to seeing these things in someone else's writing to see it when they pop up in our own writing. So look at this as preventive medicine in a certain way. Now, when we go over monkey business, we are going to focus on how the paper is organized and how explicitly that organization comes out. Academic writing is all about argument, and in order to know what the argument is, you have to be able to find the argument. So academic writing tends to be very structured. We want to have a very clear order, and this includes thesis statement, topic, sentences. The introduction should end with a clear thesis statement, which is the ultimate statement of your argument as it's written. Each paragraph should start with its own topic sentence because each paragraph does something specific in support of the larger argument. And I should, as a reader, know that right away. When I get to the opening of a paragraph, I want to know right away what role this thing is doing in support of the larger argument. And then when we get to the conclusion, we wrap it all up. Now, this holds lots of benefits for us. As a writer, we're really able to follow the structure. It gives us a really nice way to organize our own papers, so we have almost a roadmap for where these things need to go. Fill in the blanks, put in the proper information, connect the dots. Now, obviously, it's not really that easy, but it does help out matters considerably knowing that there's that structure for you. As an academic reader, though, these things also yield a real benefit because I can go into the library, pick open a book, look at the introduction and the thesis statement, and get a pretty good idea of what the paper's doing. If I'm going for a book-length study, I can go in and look at the introduction to the book, and I can look at the introduction to each chapter, and I get a pretty good idea of what it's doing. So knowing the academic structure really helps us follow the argument from the start and get a good preview of where the argument's going. It allows us to get through a lot of sources really quickly, and it allows us, when we start reading those sources, to already know the argument so we can focus on where the details are going. It's one of my suppositions that you should be able to read your own essays by looking at just the thesis statement and the topic sentence, and if you should be able to do just that and walk away with a pretty good understanding of what the paper is doing. If it doesn't succeed in that model, then you got some real organizational work to do. So let's look at monkey business from the mindset of organization. The thesis statement. Harlow's experiments are still controversial to some in the field, but we have learned so much from his work that it's hard to reasonably condemn him. Yeah, there's a few issues here. We won't hit on the very simple, obvious ones like no contractions in formal writing. Let's look at some words that should jump out to us and give us problems. To some. But we. This immediately puts the onus on these groups because it's controversial to some people. Why are these people thinking that this is controversial? We have learned so much. Who is we? If it's reasonably hard for us to condemn him, we need to define these terms and see if they're universal or if they're just individual. Are they within Harlow's specific field? Are they within academics as a whole? Or are they within society as a whole? And when you use these big totalizing words, that kind of leads to these big questions. Is it controversial, or is it only controversial to some? And if you say it's controversial to some, I want to think, who are these some people who are offended? Are they reasonably offended? And is that the purpose of this assignment, to figure out why groups might be offended by these things? No, it's to examine the actual experiment in question. Secondly, we've already talked about narrative voices and narrative voice shifts, and we're seeing some here. Is there a reason why this person goes into first person plural there? I don't know, but it's keeping the focus on the people rather than on the specific subject of analysis, which should be Harlow's experiments. Back to it, there's another word here that really gives me some real pause as a reader. It's hard to reasonably condemn him. What exactly do we mean by reason? Is this a universal? If I condemn this person for this, does that make me the weirdo? And you see, we're asking all these questions which push us somewhere other than examining the experiment itself. Moreover, what this makes it clear is going on is that we're not really reading a persuasive essay. We're reading an opinion essay. It's about the opinions more than it is about the subject. Opinion essays are all about the writer and what the writer thinks. Persuasive essays are trying to change someone's opinion on something, so they do very different things. If we want to know your personal opinion, I'll ask you, but that's not really what the assignment was asking for here. Now, how does it work as a straight thesis statement? Well, what is a thesis statement again? It is the clearest statement of purpose for the essay itself. And we've already talked about the required 3 parts: a specific subject of analysis, a precise claim, and a blueprint of reasons. If you don't have a specific subject of analysis, then the world is kind of open as to what helps satisfy the burden of proof. The subject of analysis here should be Harlow's experiment, but it also brings in the we and the us in here, so there is a little bit of confusion there. Precise claim is that it's reasonably hard to condemn him. Can you be precise about something being reasonably hard for the public to think? Is there a blueprint of reasons? I don't know why it's reasonably hard to condemn this person. So right away, we're kind of starting off with an argument that doesn't really do what it's supposed to do. It sets me up as a reader for trying to follow, why are people worried about this thing? Why are people upset? Rather than the experiment itself. Topic sentences. Harlow's work in this field was just one of many projects that revolved around behaviorism, studying the way the psyche reacts to abnormal situations or being trained to respond to certain stimuli. This as a topic sentence has a few issues because it's comparing Harlow to everything else that's going on as the main subject for the paragraph. Now, if you want to say Harlow's work was specifically interesting or hard in some way, that's a different thing than comparing it to everything else that's out there. And right away, we're doing everything else that's out here. Does this fit in with the thesis? Well, we don't really talk about why any of this might be offensive. We can kind of put it together in our heads if we're doing the ideal reader, but we shouldn't be doing the ideal reader. We should be doing the stupidly literal, stupidly critical reader. Next topic sentence. The effects of the study were expectedly depressing. Infants who were left alone experienced extreme disturbance, sometimes incurable. This seems a description of what's going on. Is it going out of its way to tie this to our argument? If it's expectedly depressing, I don't know why you have to tell us it's expected that it was depressing. It seems that it's doing something that everyone already expected. Do we need that? I don't know, but as I said, the thesis, seeing as the thesis statement here is a little bit up in the air, this doesn't do a better job of situating why we need to know this. The kids were screwed up for life. It's easy enough to say why we need to know this, but this sentence does not do that. Next topic sentence. Well, the first one was description. The second one is description. What are we going to get next? Do these results make the experiment a bad one? Rhetorical questions cannot work as topic sentences. Topic sentences are supposed to situate the paragraph within the overall argument. The problem here is this doesn't, because this doesn't tie us to an argument. It asks the reader the opinion. So it's a question rather than stating what role this has within the larger argument. To grasp the gravity of this experiment, we have to ask ourselves if this potential for knowledge is worth it. Are we willing to break the heart in order to study it? And, as we had 2 descriptions in a row, we have another question. Why are you asking me this when what you should be doing, according to the job of a topic sentence, is to tell me what it's about? Topic sentences tell the reader this paragraph does this within the larger argument. They don't lead the reader guessing as to how things fit together. Conclusion. And notice the narrative voice shifts here, because we go into I and then we. So I will say that this experiment was worth the trouble, if not for directly influencing our ability to understand these ailments so that we can devise treatments and therapy for them if we somehow haven't already, then for nothing else but to be a common sense reminder that humans are social creatures. Let's remember what the experiment actually was. If we completely isolate kids and give them no human contact, will they grow up to be human? The kids, as the paper have already said, expectedly didn't grow up to be human. Doy. Let's restate this in more direct terms. Neglecting and torturing infants was worthwhile because it reminded us we need social interaction. Do we need to torture infants to do that? Hoy. Is it hard to reasonably condemn people for torturing kids to show us that we need to have social interaction? Eesh. I think it's fairly easy to condemn them for stuff we could probably figure out on our own personally, and this paper really hasn't done much to prove otherwise to me. So what have we learned from this? Without organization, we're thrown all over the place. And I think that's enough for us to learn. That thesis statement, topic, sentence, read is one of the more important things you can actually do because it forces you to really focus on the argument. Argument is everything. Don't make me get you all together and say it again. See you next time.